32 states, folks, have parental school choice and education freedom. Now, many of you might be shocked to learn that the Republican-controlled state of Texas isn't one of them. They're not civilized in this regard in Texas. In fact, they're knuckle-dragging. In fact, a number of left-wing Republicans are joining socialists to stab Governor Greg Abbott and the majority of their voters in the back on this civil rights issue of our day. Joining me now is Texas State Representatives Brian Harrison and Nate Schatzline. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. This just happening. Mr. Harrison, these pro-Democrat Republicans are already defending their lack of action to their constituents, saying, we ran out of time. But that's not true, Mr. Harrison. Just like the U.S. House, your speaker, Dade Phelan, sent the Texas House on vacation, sent them home, missing, I think, if my count was right, 16 days of a 30-day special session. First off, do I have those numbers right? And what's with your Republican speaker's Democrat work ethic?
Well, you know what, Chris, if you're wrong, you're just barely wrong. Let me tell you what, any Republican member of the Texas House of Representatives that says we ran out of time to do education freedom, border security, COVID medical freedom, anything like that, let me tell you, and let me be very clear and not mince words, they are lying to you. And let me tell you how I know this, Chris. We gavelled in 10 months ago. 10 full months ago, January of this year, and we knew that school choice was a priority for the governor, the lieutenant governor of the Republican Party of Texas, and 85% of Republicans in the state of Texas. And let me say something else to my colleagues in the Texas House. If you continue to team up with liberal Democrats, Marxist, socialist, teacher unions, you're responsible for turning your back on the voters who sent you to office because they want school choice. You are saying to parents that you do not trust them to make the best decisions for their kids, and you're turning your back on the 6.5 students in the state of Texas, where right now you're trapping them in a system where only 23% of Texas 8th graders are proficient in mathematics. That's unsustainable. A tidal wave of school choice is sweeping the nation, and it's about time Texas finally empower their parents with education freedom.
Yeah. GovEd's a failure, and it's a demonstrated failure. State Representative Schatzline, number of polls revealing the majority of Texans across all political affiliations, even Democrats, 53% of Democrats support school choice and education freedom. Now, as you know, Mr. Schatzline, when one votes for a Democrat, one expects that Democrat to ignore the will of their voters. But conservative Republican voters have a much different view of this voter-politician relationship. Now, after they betrayed the governor and their voters, do you think every pro-Democrat Republican who voted to deny school choice earned a primary challenger?
I absolutely do. Chris, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I think the numbers are strikingly clear across the state of Texas. Parents are demanding that their tax dollars no longer go to indoctrination, but they go to actually teaching children to be able to read, write, and do arithmetic. I mean, it's just insanity that we see red states across the country taking leaps and bound efforts to make sure that they are leading in education. And we as Texas can't get it done, like you said, not because of a handful of Democrats, but because of a handful of Republicans that are putting their next election and their school boards and superintendents and education bureaucrats above the will of the people and the parents whose tax dollars are actually funding this radical indoctrination inside of our classrooms. This is something that we have to get done. This is basic. The governor has every right to be upset, and he should be upset. And we as conservatives should demand that our state representatives either get with the program and give education freedom to every single Texas family, or step aside so that someone else can step in and give that directly to them.
Last question I have is for both of you. As you know, Governor Greg Abbott is in Israel, showing the solidarity with our ally that Joe Biden just undermined because of a heckler. What are you both hearing? Will Governor Greg Abbott likely call a fourth special session to force the legislature to comply with the majority of Texas voters? Mr. Harrison, what do you hear?
I hope he does. If I were the Governor Abbott, I would tweet out right now that he will keep the legislature in session through the general election of next year. if that's what it takes to finally get universal school choice. Let me tell you, there's only one reason. There's only one thing standing between 30 million Texans and school choice and education freedom. And that's the liberal, quote unquote, Republican leadership team in the Texas House. And let me tell you how I know that, Chris. If our liberal speaker, Dave Phelan, could get 60 Republican members of the House to vote to overturn the election of our Attorney General, Ken Paxton, on the basis of absolutely no evidence, he can deliver the votes for school choice if he wants to. All I have to believe right now is that he doesn't want to do it, and it's time the voters let him know who he's responsible for and to.
Well, Mr. Schatzline, the reason why the governor has had to call special session after special session after special session is that your so-called Republican leadership, they've not behaved as grown-ups. He has to keep on sending the legislature back to do the job that they should have done in the regular session. So let me ask you, Mr. Schatzline, have you heard whether the governor is going to call a fourth special session to force the children to do what they're supposed to do?
I sure hope he does. I think Representative Harrison is exactly right. And I want to add this. He doesn't just need to call a special session again. He needs to demand that it is universal school choice. And by universal, we mean more than 0.3% of students have access to it. We mean more than 1% of students have access to it. We have the ability to do an actual universal school program to where every single Texas family is able to access an education savings account. And any state representative that declares victory when only 0.3% of our children get access to it, if we do pass a bill, needs to recognize that that is a direct lie to the people of Texas. And we should be honest, it's universal that we're aiming for. It's not just passing a bill, it's passing the right bill with no strings attached towards private and homeschool families that actually gives access to every single child in Texas.
Yeah, I am shocked to this day how many Texans don't realize the scam that's been run since, well, from about 11 years ago, this Gang of 11, right. Charlie Geren, where the Democrats choose the Republican Speaker of the Texas House. It's amazing, but people are starting to wake up, and I think they're angry once they realize what's going on. State Representatives Brian Harrison and Nate Schatzline, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.